My name is Serafina, and I thought buying my first house at 26 meant freedom, independence, a fresh start away from my controlling family. But when I walked through my front door last Tuesday night, exhausted from a 12-hour nursing shift, I found my parents sitting casually on my new couch, like they owned the place. My mother was flipping through my mail while my father examined my bank statements spread across my coffee table. They looked up at me with smug smiles that made my blood freeze. What happened next changed everything I thought I knew about family loyalty. Hey, everyone! Before we dive into this wild family betrayal story, I need to know, where are you watching from? This story gets absolutely insane, so make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because trust me, you will not see this twist coming. The way my own parents violated my trust will shock you to your core. Standing in my own doorway, I felt like an intruder in my own home. The house I had saved 3 years to buy, working double shifts at the hospital, skipping vacations, eating ramen for months. And here were my parents treating it like their personal property. Mom! Dad, what are you doing here? How did you even get in? My voice came out shakier than I intended. My mother, Patricia, did not even look up from my credit card statement. Oh, honey, we used the spare key you gave us for emergencies. This definitely counts as an emergency. What emergency? I dropped my purse and crossed my arms, trying to project confidence I did not feel. My father, Robert, held up a thick folder of documents. Serafina, we need to talk about some very serious financial irregularities we discovered in your accounts. My stomach dropped. Irregularities? What are you talking about? Patricia finally looked at me with that condescending expression I remembered from childhood. Sweetheart, we know you think you are all grown up now, but clearly you are in over your head. These medical bills, this mortgage payment, your car loan? Honey, you are drowning in debt. I am not drowning in anything. I calculated everything carefully before I bought this house. Robert stood up, towering over me in that intimidating way he used when I was little. Serafina, we went through your finances with our accountant. You are spending more than you make. At this rate, you will lose this house within 6 months. The audacity hit me like a physical blow. You went through my finances with your accountant. How dare you? We dare because we love you, Patricia said smoothly. And because, as your parents, we have a responsibility to protect you from making catastrophic mistakes. Protect me by breaking into my house and going through my private documents. We did not break in. We used the key you gave us. Robert's voice carried that final authority tone that used to make me back down instantly. And frankly, young lady, your attitude is proving exactly why you need our guidance. I felt 8 years old again, being lectured for some minor transgression. But I was 26, a registered nurse, a homeowner. I had earned the right to make my own decisions, even my own mistakes. Get out, I whispered. Excuse me? Patricia's eyebrows shot up. Get out of my house, right now. Robert stepped closer. Serafina, you are being hysterical. We are trying to help you. Help me. You invaded my privacy. You violated my trust, and now you are standing in my living room telling me I cannot manage my own life. Because you cannot? Patricia's mask of maternal concern slipped for just a moment, revealing something colder underneath. You were always too emotional, too impulsive. Just like when you insisted on nursing school instead of something practical like business. Nursing is practical. I help save lives every day. You help wipe bottoms and take orders from doctors. Robert snorted. Not exactly a career path that builds wealth. The cruel dismissal of everything I had worked for hit deeper than any physical blow could have. These people who claimed to love me were systematically attacking every choice I had made as an adult. "I want you both to leave. Now." Patricia sighed dramatically. "Fine, but Serafina, when this all falls apart, and it will, do not come crying to us. We tried to warn you. When you are ready to have an adult conversation about your future, you know where to find us," Robert added, gathering up my bank statements like he had every right to them. They walked toward the door with maddening slowness, as if giving me time to change my mind and beg them to stay and fix my apparently disastrous life. At the threshold, Patricia turned back. "Oh, and honey, we made copies of everything. You know, just in case you lose the originals. You are always so disorganized." The door closed behind them with a soft click that somehow felt more violent than if they had slammed it. I stood in my living room, shaking with rage and something that felt uncomfortably close to shame. Were they right? Had I bitten off more than I could chew? I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, going through my numbers again. My mortgage payment was exactly what I had calculated it would be. My medical school loans were on track for the 10-year forgiveness program. My car payment fit comfortably in my budget. I had 6 months of expenses in my emergency fund, exactly like every financial advisor recommended. So, why had my parents made it sound like I was on the verge of financial ruin? I walked to my kitchen table where they had left some of my documents scattered around. As I gathered them up, I noticed something odd. The credit card statement my mother had been examining so intently was not mine. The account number was different. The name on the account was different. It was my father's credit card statement, but it had my address listed as the billing address. My hands started trembling as I looked more closely. There were charges on this statement I did not recognize, expensive charges. A $5,000 payment to something called Riverside Investment Consulting, a $2,500 charge to Premium Asset Management. And then I saw it, a charge for $1,200 to a locksmith service dated 2 weeks ago, the same day I had closed on my house and gotten my keys. They had changed my locks, without my permission, and sent themselves copies of the new keys. But why would they put these charges on a credit card with my address? The answer hit me like ice water in my veins. They were not just violating my privacy. They were stealing my identity, using my address, my good credit, my financial information to hide their own debts and expenses. And they had the absolute audacity to come into my house and accuse me of financial mismanagement. I did not sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, a notepad, and every financial document I could find, determined to understand the full scope of what my parents had done to me. What I discovered made me physically sick. Using my address as their billing location was just the beginning. They had somehow managed to open 3 credit cards in my name with a combined limit of $50,000. The statement showed they had maxed out 2 of them, making only minimum payments that barely covered the interest. But the most devastating discovery came when I pulled my credit report. My pristine credit score, the one I had carefully built through college and nursing school, had dropped 120 points in the past 6 months. There were inquiries I had never authorized, accounts I had never opened, and late payment marks that would follow me for years. They had destroyed my financial future while lecturing me about fiscal responsibility. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Sweetheart, I hope you are feeling better this morning. Your father and I are worried about your outburst last night. Maybe you should consider seeing someone about your stress levels." The gaslighting was breathtaking. They had committed fraud, invaded my privacy, and stolen my identity, but I was the one who needed professional help for being upset about it. I screenshot the message and added it to the growing folder of evidence I was compiling. By sunrise, I had a plan. First, I called my bank and put fraud alerts on all my accounts. Then I contacted each credit card company to report the unauthorized accounts opened in my name. The customer service representatives were sympathetic but warned me that disputing the charges could take months and would require police reports, which brought me to my second stop, the police station. Officer Martinez listened to my story with the weary expression of someone who had heard similar tales before. Family financial abuse is more common than people think, she told me as she took my statement. But it is also harder to prove, especially when the perpetrators have access to your personal information. I have documentation, I said, sliding the folder across her desk. Credit card statements with my address, but their names charges for services I never authorized, proof they changed my locks without permission. Officer Martinez reviewed the documents carefully. This is definitely identity theft. We can file charges, but I have to warn you, prosecuting family members can be complicated. Are you prepared for that? They stole from me. They lied to me. They violated my trust in the worst possible way. My voice was steady now, all traces of last night's shakiness gone. Yes, I am prepared. There is one more thing you should know, Officer Martinez said as she filled out the paperwork. If these charges stick, your parents could face serious jail time. Identity theft and fraud are felonies. For just a moment, I hesitated. These were still my parents. The people who had raised me, paid for my education, been there for me through childhood illnesses and heartbreaks. But then I thought about them sitting in my living room, going through my private documents while acting like they were doing me a favor. I thought about the condescending way they had dismissed my career, my choices, my independence. I thought about my destroyed credit score and the months of work it would take to rebuild what they had torn down in minutes. File the charges, I said firmly. Officer Martinez nodded and continued writing. We will need to serve them with papers. Do you have their current address? I gave her the information, along with copies of all my documentation. As I walked out of the police station, I felt lighter than I had in months. For the first time since buying my house, I felt like I was truly in control of my own life. But my vindication was short-lived. My phone rang before I even got to my car. It was my older brother, Marcus, and he sounded furious. Serafina, what the hell did you do? Mom just called me crying, saying you filed some kind of police report against them. Marcus, they stole my identity. They opened credit cards in my name and destroyed my credit score. That is not what they told me. They said you were having some kind of breakdown and started making wild accusations when they tried to help you with your finances. The familiar pattern was already starting. My parents had gotten to Marcus first, spun their version of events, and now I was the unstable daughter making false accusations against her loving parents. Marcus, I have documentation. Credit card statement is charges. I never authorized, proof they changed my locks without telling me. Look, I know Mom and Dad can be a little overbearing, but filing criminal charges against our parents, Sarah, that is insane. What is insane is them committing fraud and then acting like I am the problem for being upset about it. Our parents are not criminals, Serafina. Maybe you should talk to someone. I can recommend a therapist. And there it was. Just like that, I had gone from victim to the family problem that needed fixing. Marcus, will you at least look at the evidence before you decide I'm having a mental breakdown? A long pause. Fine. Send me what you have. But Sarah, if you are wrong about this, if you are putting our parents through legal hell because you misunderstood something, then I will drop the charges and apologize. But if I am right, will you support me? If you are right, then yeah, of course. But honestly, I cannot imagine Mom and Dad doing something like that. After I hung up, I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the police station. I had expected my parents to deny everything to minimize their actions, maybe even to retaliate. But I had not expected them to immediately mobilize the rest of the family against me. This was not just about fraud anymore. This was about who would control the narrative of our family. And I was starting to realize that my parents had a lot more experience at this game than I did. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Emma. Sarah Marcus told me what happened. I am so sorry you are going through such a hard time. Maybe we should all sit down and talk this through as a family. The manipulation was masterful. In less than 2 hours, my parents had managed to frame my legitimate complaint about their criminal behavior as a mental health crisis that required family intervention. But I had something they did not know about yet. Evidence. Documentation. Proof that their version of events was a lie. And I was just getting started. The family meeting was scheduled for Sunday dinner at my parents' house, just like when we were kids, and had to hash out sibling disagreements over meatloaf and mashed potatoes. Except this time, instead of arguing about who broke the vase or forgot to feed the dog, we were discussing felony charges. I almost did not go. The idea of walking back into that house where they would outnumber me 4-1 and spend 2 hours explaining why I was wrong about my own experience made my stomach churn. But I went anyway, armed with 3 folders of documentation and a digital recorder in my purse. The atmosphere was tense from the moment I walked through the door. My parents greeted me with the careful politeness they usually reserved for difficult relatives, while Marcus and Emma tried too hard to act normal. "Sarah, honey, you look tired," my mother said, studying my face with exaggerated concern. "Are you sleeping okay? Sometimes stress can really affect our judgment, you know." And we were off to the races. I waited until we were all seated around the familiar dining room table before I spoke. "Before anyone says anything else, I want everyone to look at these documents." I placed the 3 folders in the center of the table like evidence in a courtroom. "Sarah, we did not come here to look at paperwork," Marcus started, but I cut him off. "Actually, that is exactly why we are here. Because paperwork does not lie, but people do." The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. My father leaned back in his chair, with that amused expression he wore when I was being particularly childish. "Serafina, your mother and I have been managing finances since before you were born. I think we know the difference between helping our daughter and committing a crime." "Then explain this," I said, pulling out the credit card statement with my address, but his name. "Explain why you have been using my address as your billing location, without my permission." Patricia glanced at Robert, and I caught the quick flash of communication that passed between them. "Honey, we used your address temporarily while we were having some mail issues at our house," Patricia said smoothly. "It is not unusual for family members to help each other out that way. And the locksmith charged the $1,200 you spent to change my locks and make copies of my keys." Emma leaned forward, frowning. "Wait, they changed your locks without telling you?" "Of course, we did not change her locks without telling her," Robert said, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. "We arranged for better security after she moved in. It was a housewarming gift." "A housewarming gift that you never mentioned to me, that you never gave me permission to authorize." Marcus was studying the credit card statement, now his expression growing more troubled. "Dad, this account has Sarah's address, but it is in your name, and there are a lot of charges here." "Marcus, you know how your father is with paperwork." Patricia laughed, but it sounded forced. "Sometimes he gets confused about which address to use for what account." Confused? My voice was rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "This is not confusion. This is fraud. You opened credit cards in my name, destroyed my credit score, and then had the audacity to come into my house and lecture me about financial responsibility." "That is absolutely not true," Robert said firmly. "We have never opened any accounts in your name." I pulled out my credit report and slammed it on the table. Then explained these 3 credit cards with my social security number that I never applied for. The room went completely silent. Emma picked up the credit report with shaking hands. These accounts were opened 6 months ago, with $50,000 in combined limits. And they are all maxed out, I added. $50,000 in debt that I knew nothing about until last night. Marcus was staring at our parents like he was seeing them for the first time. Mom, Dad, did you do this? Of course not, Patricia said, but her voice was too high, too defensive. Serafina clearly applied for these cards and forgot about them. You know how scattered she can be. I forgot about $50,000 in credit card applications. My voice was dangerously quiet now. I forgot about destroying my own credit score. Robert tried a different approach. Serafina, you have been under a lot of stress lately with the new house and your work schedule. Sometimes stress can affect our memory. Are you seriously trying to gaslight me right now in front of Marcus and Emma? Nobody is gaslighting anybody. Patricia snapped her maternal mask, slipping again. We are trying to have a rational conversation about your accusations, but you seem determined to be dramatic about everything. Emma was still going through the documents, her face getting paler by the minute. Sarah, there are charges here for investment consulting and asset management. Did you hire financial advisors? No, but apparently our parents did, using my money. Marcus looked up from the credit report. Mom, these signatures look different from Sarah's usual signature. How would you know what my signature looks like? I asked. Because I co-signed your car loan last year, remember? Your signature is much more rounded. These are sharper, more angular. Patricia and Robert exchanged another look longer this time. Look, Robert said, his voice taking on a warning tone. We came here to have a family discussion, not to be interrogated like criminals. Maybe because you are criminals, I said quietly. The words hung in the air like smoke. Emma was the first to break the silence. Sarah, do you really think Mom and Dad would steal from you? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced down and felt my heart stop. It was from my bank. Fraud alert. Attempt to withdraw $15,000 from savings account. Transaction blocked. Please contact us immediately. I held up my phone with shaking hands. I just got a fraud alert. Someone tried to withdraw $15,000 from my savings account. Right now. While we have been sitting here. The blood drained from Robert's face. That is impossible, he stammered. We have been here the whole time. I stood up so fast my chair fell over. We tried to withdraw money from my account. Patricia was frantically digging through her purse. Robert, where is your phone? I left it in the car. Why? Marcus was staring at our parents in horror. You set up automatic transfers. You programmed Dad's phone to access Sarah's accounts. That is ridiculous, Patricia said, but her hands were shaking now. Why would we do something like that? Because you have been bleeding money for months, Emma said quietly, still going through the documents. These investment consulting fees, the asset management charges. You lost a lot of money somewhere, and you have been using Sarah's credit to cover it. Emma, that is enough, Robert barked. You do not know what you are talking about. Actually, I think I do. Emma's voice was getting stronger. I work for a financial planning firm, Dad. I recognize these charges. Premium Asset Management is a high-risk investment company that got shut down by the SEC 3 months ago for running a Ponzi scheme. The room exploded into chaos. You invested our money in a Ponzi scheme, Marcus shouted. Not our money, I corrected grimly. My money. They have been using my identity to cover their gambling debts. Patricia started crying, but they were angry tears, not remorseful ones. We did this for the family. We were trying to build something for all of you. By destroying my credit, by stealing my identity, by lying to my face. We never meant for it to go this far, Robert said desperately. We thought we could pay it back before you noticed. Pay it back with what? I was screaming now, months of suppressed anger finally exploding. You lost everything, and when that was not enough, you stole from your own daughter. Marcus stood up, his face flushed with rage. I cannot believe you did this. I cannot believe you sat there and let us think Sarah was having some kind of breakdown when you were the ones stealing from her. Marcus, please. Patricia reached for him, but he stepped back like she had a disease. Do not touch me. Do not ever touch me again. Emma was crying now, real tears of betrayal and heartbreak. How could you do this to our sister? How could you do this to our family? But I was already heading for the door, my phone in my hand. Sarah, where are you going? Emma called after me. To call the police, I said without turning around. This stops now. The police station felt different this time. Officer Martinez greeted me with the grim efficiency of someone who had seen this movie before and knew how it ended. The attempted withdrawal from your savings account gives us real-time evidence, she explained as I handed over my phone showing the fraud alert. This moves your case from historical identity theft to active financial crime in progress. Within 2 hours, they had arrested both my parents. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides and left me walking around empty. Marcus called me that evening, his voice thick with emotion. Sarah, I am so sorry. I should have believed you from the beginning. It is okay, I said, though we both knew it was not. No, it is not okay. I let them turn me against you. I questioned your sanity instead of questioning their story. He paused. Emma and I want to help. Whatever you need to fix this mess, we are with you. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe again. My siblings believed me. I was not alone in this nightmare. There is going to be a court hearing next week, I told him. I might need character witnesses. Of course, Emma and I will be there. But when the hearing date arrived, only Emma showed up. I kept checking my phone thinking Marcus was just running late. The hearing was scheduled for 10 in the morning, and by 9:45, there was still no sign of him. Maybe he got stuck in traffic, Emma suggested, but her voice lacked conviction. At exactly 10 o'clock, the bailiff called our case. My parents appeared with a lawyer who looked expensive and confident. They had somehow made bail and were dressed like they were attending a business meeting rather than facing felony charges. And then I saw him. Marcus was sitting in the back row, but he was not alone. He was sitting with my parents' lawyer, and they were whispering quietly together. My stomach dropped to my feet. When the lawyer stood to address the judge, Marcus stood with him. Your Honor, the lawyer began in a smooth, practiced voice. My clients are loving parents who have been falsely accused by their daughter, who has been struggling with significant mental health issues and substance abuse problems. The words hit me like physical blows. The alleged financial irregularities can be explained by Miss Serafina Walsh's own erratic behavior and poor judgment. In fact, we have a witness who can testify to her recent instability. Marcus stepped forward. I could not breathe. My own brother was about to testify against me in court in front of a judge under oath. Your Honor, Marcus set his voice steady and clear. My sister has been under tremendous stress since buying her house. She has been working excessive hours, and I have personally observed her drinking heavily and making irrational decisions. The courtroom spun around me. Emma grabbed my arm to keep me upright. I believe my sister genuinely thinks our parents committed these crimes, but I also believe she is not thinking clearly right now. What she needs is help, not a criminal prosecution of our family." My lawyer leaned over and whispered urgently in my ear, "This is character assassination. We can fight this." But I barely heard him. I was staring at Marcus, my big brother, who had taught me to ride a bike and protected me from bullies, and trying to understand how he had become the enemy. The judge listened to Marcus's testimony with growing concern. "Miss Walsh, these are serious allegations your brother is making about your mental state and substance use. Do you have any response?" I stood on shaking legs. "Your Honor, my brother is lying. I do not have substance abuse problems. I can provide medical records, employment records, anything you need to verify that I am competent and sober." "That will not be necessary today," the judge said. However, given the conflicting accounts and the serious nature of both the financial crimes and the mental health concerns raised, I am ordering a full psychological evaluation before we proceed. My lawyer objected, but the damage was done. As we filed out of the courtroom, Marcus tried to approach me. "Sarah, please let me explain." "Explain what? How you committed perjury to protect people who stole from me." "It is not that simple. Mom and Dad, they are broke. Completely broke. If they go to prison, they will lose the house, their retirement, everything. They stole from me, Marcus. $50,000. I know, and that was wrong, but destroying the whole family is not going to fix anything." Emma stepped between us, her face flushed with rage. "Are you seriously defending them right now, after everything we saw in those documents?" Marcus looked desperate. "Emma, they promised they would pay Sarah back. Every penny. They just need time." "Pay me back with what money?" I laughed bitterly. "You just said they are broke. They have a plan." "Dad has some investments that are going to pay off soon." "Marcus, those investments are why they are broke. The Ponzi scheme, remember? The one Emma identified." But Marcus was shaking his head like he could will reality to be different. "They explained all that. It was a misunderstanding. The investment company is just restructuring." I stared at my brother and realized with crystal clarity that they had gotten to him. Somehow, some way, my parents had managed to convince my own brother to betray me in court. "How much did they pay you?" I asked quietly. "Sarah, that is not fair." "How much, Marcus?" His silence was answer enough. Emma was crying now, tears of rage and heartbreak. "They bought you. Our parents bought your testimony against our sister." "It is not like that," Marcus protested, but his voice was weak. "Then what is it like? Because from where I am standing, it looks like you just committed perjury for money." I turned and walked away, leaving both my siblings standing in the courthouse hallway. Emma caught up with me in the parking lot. "Sarah, I am so sorry. I had no idea Marcus was going to do that." "Neither did I said numbly. "But I should have seen it coming. This is what they do. They divide us against each other, make us choose sides, and somehow they always win." "Not this time," Emma said fiercely. "I believe you. I saw those documents. I know what they did." One person believing me is not enough to win a court case, Emma. Especially when that person is not a financial expert or a lawyer or anyone whose opinion carries weight. But Emma was smiling through her tears, and there was something in her expression that made me pause. "Actually, Sarah, I think I might know someone whose opinion carries a lot of weight." Emma's contact turned out to be her boss at the financial planning firm where she worked. A woman named Detective Sarah Chin, who had recently retired from the Financial Crimes Division of the FBI and was now working as a private consultant. When Emma called her and explained the situation, Detective Chin agreed to meet with us that same afternoon. Her office was small and cluttered with case files, but her reputation was formidable. She had spent 20 years investigating white-collar crime and had a particular expertise in family financial abuse. I see cases like this more often than you might think, she told us as she reviewed my documentation. Family members with access to personal information can do tremendous damage very quickly. The problem is, my brother testified against me in court, I explained. He made me sound like I am having some kind of mental breakdown. Detective Chen looked up from the credit report she was studying. Your brother is either being paid or blackmailed. Those are the only two reasons someone would perjure themselves to protect obvious criminals. How can you be so sure they are criminals? Emma asked. Because I recognize the pattern. Detective Chen spread several documents across her desk. Look at the timeline. Your parents started using Serafina's address 6 months ago, right around the time they invested in premium asset management. She pulled up something on her computer. Premium asset management was not just a Ponzi scheme. It was specifically targeting older investors with promises of guaranteed returns. Your parents probably invested their retirement savings and lost everything. So they decided to steal from me instead of admitting they made a mistake, I said. More than that, they have been systematically identity theft to cover not just their losses, but their ongoing expenses. Look at these charges. Mortgage payments, car payments, credit card, minimums. They have been living off your credit for months. Emma leaned forward. Can you prove that in court? I can do better than that. I can trace every transaction, every forged signature, every unauthorized access to Serafina's accounts. Detective Chen's smile was predatory. I spent 2 decades building cases against people exactly like your parents. But what about Marcus's testimony? The judge ordered a psychological evaluation. We use that to our advantage. The psychological evaluation will prove you are competent and sober. Meanwhile, I will be building an airtight case that makes your brother's testimony irrelevant. Over the next week, Detective Chen worked with the efficiency of someone who had done this hundreds of times before. She traced every fraudulent transaction, documented every forged signature, and built a timeline that showed exactly how my parents had systematically stolen my identity. But more importantly, she discovered something that changed everything. Serafina, I need you to sit down for this, she said when she called me 3 days before my psychological evaluation. I found the smoking gun. She had discovered that my parents had not just stolen from me. They had been running a more elaborate scheme involving multiple victims. They have been using your address to open accounts for at least 3 other people, neighbors, family friends, anyone whose personal information they could access. My hands started shaking. How many people did they steal from? At least 4 that I can document? Probably more. This is not just identity theft, Serafina. This is organized fraud on a massive scale. Oh my God, those poor people. There is more. I traced the money flow from all the fraudulent accounts, and guess where it all went? Premium asset management. Only half of it. The other half went to pay your brother's mortgage. The words hit me like ice water. What? Marcus has been struggling financially for over a year. Your parents have been paying his bills with stolen money. That is why he testified against you. They were not just paying him for his testimony. They have been supporting him all along. I felt sick. My own brother had been living off the proceeds of my stolen identity for months and then had the audacity to stand in court and question my mental health. Detective Chen, what do we do with this information? We take it to the district attorney. With this level of evidence, they will have to file additional charges. And with multiple victims, your parents are looking at serious prison time. The psychological evaluation turned out to be a joke. The psychologist asked me basic questions about my mental health, reviewed my employment records and medical history, and concluded what anyone with common sense already knew: I was a competent adult with no signs of mental illness or substance abuse. Your brother's testimony appears to have been completely fabricated, the psychologist told the court at the follow-up hearing. Miss Walsh shows no signs of the instability or substance abuse he described. But by then it did not matter. Detective Chen had presented her evidence to the district attorney, who immediately expanded the charges against my parents and issued a warrant for Marcus's arrest as an accessory to fraud. The courtroom was packed for the main hearing. Detective Chen sat beside my lawyer, her folders of evidence stacked neatly on the table. Emma sat behind me in the gallery, her hand on my shoulder for moral support. My parents sat at the defendant's table with their expensive lawyer, who no longer looked quite so confident. Marcus was not there. He had been arrested the night before. When Detective Chen took the stand, her testimony was devastating. Over the course of 6 months, she told the court, the defendants systematically stole the identities of at least 5 different victims, opening fraudulent accounts with a total credit limit of over $200,000. The judge's face grew progressively more stern as Detective Chen laid out the scope of the crime. They used Miss Walsh's address as a base of operations, forged signatures on loan applications, and used the proceeds to fund both their own lifestyle and to pay bills for their son Marcus Walsh, who was aware of the scheme and accepted the stolen funds. My parents' lawyer tried to object, but Detective Chen had documentation for everything. Furthermore, she continued, when Miss Walsh discovered the fraud and attempted to report it, the defendants engaged in witness intimidation and attempted to discredit her through false testimony provided by their co-conspirator's son. The defense crumbled completely when Detective Chen presented the bank records showing the money trail from the fraudulent accounts to Marcus's mortgage company. Your Honor, she concluded, this was not a family dispute over finances. This was organized criminal enterprise that destroyed multiple innocent victims to fund the defendants' gambling addiction and their son's lifestyle. When Detective Chen stepped down from the witness stand, the outcome was no longer in doubt. My parents were going to prison. Marcus was going to prison. And for the first time in months, I felt like justice was actually possible. The sentencing hearing took place on a gray Thursday morning in February. I sat in the front row of the courthouse, Emma beside me, watching as the judge prepared to deliver consequences that would reshape our family forever. My parents stood before the bench in orange jumpsuits, looking smaller and older than I had ever seen them. The expensive lawyer was gone, replaced by a public defender who looked overwhelmed and underprepared. Robert and Patricia Walsh, the judge began, you have been convicted of conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, elder abuse, and witness intimidation. These crimes affected not just your own daughter, but 5 other innocent victims whose lives you disrupted for your own financial gain. My father tried to speak, but the judge cut him off. You will each serve 4 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of probation. You will make full restitution to all victims, and you are permanently banned from accessing any financial accounts or credit facilities without court supervision. I felt Emma squeeze my hand as our parents were led away in handcuffs. They did not look back. Marcus's sentencing had taken place the week before. 3 years in prison for his role as an accessory, plus his house had been seized to help pay restitution to the victims. He had tried to call me from jail, but I had not answered. The civil restitution process took 8 more months, but Detective Chen had been thorough. My credit score was not just restored, it was better than it had ever been. The other victims, including an elderly couple from my parents' church and a single mother who worked with my father, were also made whole. But the real healing happened slowly in smaller moments. Emma and I started having dinner together every Sunday, a new tradition that had nothing to do with obligation and everything to do with choice. We talked about everything except our parents and Marcus building a relationship based on who we actually were, rather than who our family dynamics had forced us to become. Detective Chen became an unexpected mentor and friend. She helped me understand the psychological patterns of financial abuse, how skilled manipulators use family loyalty as a weapon, and how to recognize red flags in future relationships. The hardest part for most victims, she told me one afternoon over coffee, is learning to trust their own judgment again. Your parents spent years teaching you to doubt yourself, to believe their version of reality, over your own experiences. She was right. For months after the trial, I second-guessed every financial decision, every relationship, every choice I made. But gradually, with Emma's support and Detective Chen's guidance, I learned to trust myself again. I also learned something unexpected about forgiveness. A year after the trial, Marcus was released early for good behavior. He showed up at my house one evening, looking broken and desperate. "Sarah, I know I do not deserve it, but I need to try to make this right." I listened as he apologized, as he explained how our parents had manipulated him as he begged for a chance to rebuild our relationship. "Marcus," I said when he finished, "I forgive you. But forgiveness does not mean going back to the way things were. You chose to betray me in court. You chose to take stolen money. You chose to commit perjury. Those were your choices, not theirs." He cried then, the ugly sobbing of someone who had lost everything and was finally understanding why. "I know," he whispered. "I know I ruined everything." "You did not ruin everything," I said gently. "But you did ruin us. And I am not responsible for fixing that." We have spoken twice since then. Brief, polite conversations that acknowledge our shared history without pretending we can reclaim it. Maybe someday we will rebuild something, but it will have to be completely new, based on who we are now, rather than who we used to be. Emma and I did build something new. We created a chosen family that includes Detective Chen, Officer Martinez, who first took my report, and several other friends who proved themselves trustworthy during the worst period of my life. My house, the one my parents had invaded and violated, became a sanctuary. I changed the locks again, installed a security system, and slowly filled it with memories that belonged only to me. Every month when I make my mortgage payment, with my own money earned through my own work, I feel a quiet satisfaction that has nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with genuine independence. The nursing job that my parents had dismissed so condescendingly became a source of profound meaning. Every patient I helped, every family I comforted during crisis, reminded me that my work mattered in ways that had nothing to do with money or status. 2 years after the trial, I got a letter from my mother in prison. She was scheduled for release in 18 months and wanted to know if we could work things out as a family when she got out. I read the letter twice, then threw it away. Some bridges once burned are not meant to be rebuilt. But I did not throw it away out of anger or bitterness. I threw it away because I had built a better life without her manipulation and control, and I had no desire to invite that toxicity back in. That evening, Emma and I sat on my back porch, watching the sunset and talking about her new job promotion. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked suddenly. Reporting them, going through all of that, I thought about it seriously. The court proceedings had been brutal. The family destruction had been complete. The emotional cost had been enormous. "No," I said finally. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that they chose crime over honesty. I regret that Marcus chose them over me. But I do not regret standing up for myself." "Good," Emma said firmly, "because you saved all of us. Even Marcus, though, he will probably never understand that." As I type this story, sharing it with all of you, it has been 3 years since that night I found my parents in my living room. 3 years since my world exploded, and I learned that family loyalty can be the cruelest trap of all. But here is what I want you to know. Sometimes the family that raises you is not the family you are meant to keep. Sometimes protecting yourself requires you to walk away from people who share your blood but do not share your values. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to be a victim, even when the people hurting you are the ones who are supposed to love you most. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and your own well-being? Have you experienced betrayal from someone you trusted completely? How do you rebuild after discovering the people closest to you were living lies? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Your experiences might help someone else who is facing a similar situation. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life family drama stories. Share this video with anyone who might be dealing with family manipulation or financial abuse. Sometimes knowing you are not alone makes all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story and for being part of this community. Remember, you deserve relationships built on honesty and respect, not manipulation and control. Trust yourself, protect yourself, and never let anyone convince you that your reality is not real. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.